Let us continue with the poem Ulysses. I am going to read the poem, that is the remaining part of the poem. So you know what happened in the previous section. Actually, the poem is not divided into parts by the poet, but it's just for convenience sake that I had stopped at a certain point in the previous video. And we saw how Ulysses expressed his unhappiness at his retired life and of having to lead a life without any adventures. So he expresses his frustration at being caught in this domestic life in Ithaca. Now he continues. Now he tells us that he wants to live life to its full. He wants to have adventures. He wants to travel till the last moment of his life. And now let me continue reading the poem. This is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter and the isle, well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor, by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. Most blameless is he, centered in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness, and pay meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. So of course there is more of it. I'll read it after I finish the explanation for this one stanza. So he says, now he wants to leave. So as the reigning king, it is his duty to hand over the responsibility of kingship to somebody. And so he looks around for the correct person, and he has the person right in his own house. That is his son Telemachus. So he says this, he introduces us to Telemachus and says, this is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter and the isle. So I am going to leave the responsibility of ruling this island to this son of mine. Now scepter is the rod. If you have watched movies where you have the king, they usually have a kind of a rod, an ornamented, a decorative rod, that is the scepter. It is a symbol of the king's authority. So the scepter and the crown, both of them, they symbolize royal authority or kingship. So he says, I am going to leave my scepter and the isle, the island, to Telemachus. And now he tells us about Telemachus, well loved of me. That is, I am very fond of the son of mine, discerning to fulfill this labor, by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. And he makes an assessment of his son's character, and he says that I love him a lot, and he is as far as I understand, he is the best person who can take up this labor of kingship, and he is discerning to fulfill, that is, he is suitable to fulfill this labor by slow prudence. Now prudence is wisdom, intelligence, and so he has understood that Telemachus, now he has not been there for a long time, and Telemachus had grown up without his father, and so he must have attained a certain level of maturity because he was responsible for his family. And so he says he has this slow prudence, he has the wisdom to control. You remember what he said about his people? They are a savage race, an uncivilized people who only know to make money and to eat and to sleep. They know nothing else. They don't respect anything else. And so that is, he once again says that my son, I am sure, has the prudence to make mild a rugged people. He has the capacity to slowly to kind of make them more civilized, to refine them, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. And he knows how to control them, to make them do good things, to transform them into a nation of good and useful people. Now, at present, they are not that way. And he admits that as a king, he simply doesn't have the capacity to rule this place. But he is sure that his son has the capacity, has all the desirable abilities that of a good king, and he's sure that he will lead the island nation towards prosperity and progress. And he says, most blameless is he, centered in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness. So he says he is blameless, he is blemishless. So far I have not come across a bad thing to say about my son. He is an ideal person. He is centered in the sphere of common duties. Means he has been doing his common duties as a son and as the ruler when his father was not there, as a grandson. All that he has been doing very well. And he is decent not to fail in offices of tenderness. So he's a very decent person, and he doesn't neglect the people around him, the family. He's got his mother, he's got his grandparents. He takes and of course now the father is there, the father too, that is Ulysses himself is an old man, and Telemachus has always taken care of all of them. He has been very tender with all of them, and he pay meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. So they have a lot of gods to worship, household gods, they have, because we know that in Greek mythology there are a lot of, they followed a pantheist religion where nature was worshipped and where a lot of gods were there. And so he says that he will pay meet adoration. Meet here means suitable adoration. He will respect and he will worship the gods as they want him to, appropriately. Okay, appropriate. So meet means appropriate, apt, suitable. And so he, I'm sure, will take care of the family, take care of the country, and also he will worship and keep the gods happy when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. So he says, my son Telemachus is good at ruling the nation, and so let him do his work, because this is what he is good at. He is not interested in traveling. Whereas I, on the other hand, am not interested in ruling. I want to travel. So let him work his work, I mine. So he feels that the best decision would be to leave the island nation to Telemachus and for him to pursue his own interests. Now, the next stanza, which is a long one, let me read that first. There lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail. There gloom the dark, broad seas. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine, and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Old age hath yet his honour and his toil. Death closes all. But something ere the end, some work of noble note, may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks, the long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans around with many voices. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows. For my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset and the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. So let's go on to the beginning of that stanza. So he says, now he has decided to travel. He has given the responsibility of the island to his son. There is not a mention of his wife. So if we look at this poem from a feminist point of view, we may get a little upset, but let's not look at it through a feminist lens. Now he says, there lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail. So the ship is lying waiting for them. He can see the port from where he is standing. He's standing on some elevated place, I guess, and from there he can see the port and he can see the vessel, and the sails are all full because there is a wind blowing and the sails are all puffed out, and so the ship is ready to sail. And beyond the ship he can see the gloom, the dark broad seas. He can see the gloomy kind of sea lying there, the dark sea, the broad sea. And then he also has his team, his crew, his dear friends waiting there. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me. So he is most at ease with these sailors, his friends, mariner friends. They are all warriors too. And so these people, they hold a very special place in his heart, and that's why he says, they have toiled with me, they have wrought with me and thought with me. Means they have worked hard with me, they have suffered with me, they have thought with me, and that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine. So, and these people, they were all very optimistic, they were all very courageous, and so they always welcomed danger and pleasure. So you can see thunder might symbolize dangerous things. Sunshine always gives us a feeling of well-being. So whether it is danger or whether it is pleasure or happiness, they always faced it with a frolic welcome and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. And so they were always willing to, they opposed in the sense they have fought against people. So these friends of his, they were ready to face perils and joys and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. So free hearts and free foreheads signify these people because they were ready, their minds were free. They were not, and their foreheads were free in the sense that they did not have any tensions about the dangers that they're going to meet. They were always free and courageous to meet whatever lay ahead of them. So that is why he calls them free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Now he's talking to them and he says, my mariners. Now remember that this poem is a dramatic monologue and Ulysses, the speaker, is addressing. Here now he's addressing his mariners and he tells them, you and I are old. Old age hath yet his honor and his toil. It is true that you are old, all of you are old, I am old too, but then we still cannot give up because until death comes upon us, we still have things to prove. That's why he says, old age hath yet his honor and his toil. So there, let me put in a word about the pronunciation of this word, H-O-N-O-U-R. You know that for this word, we do not pronounce the first H. You just say honor, honorable. It is wrong to say honorable, honest. Okay, of course, not all beginning H's can be ignored. Only some words you have this silent H. For example, in honor and in our, honest. But in words like history, hysteria, of course, the H is pronounced. But I often hear people mispronouncing this word as honor. So that is why I've made a note of it. So he says, old age hath yet his honor and his toil. That is, there are still toils that we have to accomplish. There are still things that we have to do. There are still worthy things, honorable things that we can do. Death closes all. So he says, death, of course, closes all. Death is the final word. But something ere the end, some work of noble note may yet be done. So he says, but then we can't give up. It is too soon to give up. We can't give up so fast. Something before the end, at least one adventure before we die. Something, air is before, okay, before. Something before the end, some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. And so he says, see, we are not ordinary men. We are men who strove with gods. We fought along with gods, because in the Iliad, you see that gods also took part in the Trojan War by supporting one side or the other. They took sides of the heroes, and so they too were part of this battle. And so he says, we are no ordinary mortals. We are people who have fought along with the gods. And so, sure, we can do something. Some work of noble note before death closes down on us. So he exhorts his men. He kind of tries to pump energy into them and tell them, now let's go on and do something more. Let's do something worthwhile. Because not only Ulysses, even these fellow sailors who had accompanied him on his long voyages, they too must be feeling the same thing that he is feeling. They too must be getting bored with this inert kind of life that they're leading there. And so he tells them, say, let's do something. And then he says, the lights begin to twinkle from the rocks, the long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans around with many voices. It's getting dark, so it is slowly, the light is fading, and now the light twinkling from the rocks, I guess maybe the lights that are lighted in the houses, because it's evening, it's twilight. And so people have started lighting the lamps in their homes. So he says, lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. The long day wanes. The moon has started climbing up. The sun has gone down. The deep moans. The deep here is the sea. The sea is making all kind of noises. He can hear the sound of the waves, and because he knows the language of the sea, he has spent so many years in the sea, he feels that he can hear many voices. He can feel that the waves are talking to him. That's why he says the deep moans around with many voices. And what do you think these voices must be telling him now? They must be calling him, come and get onto the ship. Let's go on a new adventure. So he feels that the sea is talking to him. And then he says to his friends, come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the surrounding furrows. So he tells his friends, come on, let's all get on board the ship, and each of you can take your place, and sitting well in order, because you know that those days they had to row the boat or whatever. They did not really have huge ships, just big boats they had. And so there were no machines with which you could just drive the boat on. You had to use the oars. And so he says, now let us all go and sit in the boat and seek a new world, and let's push off from the shore, and all of you sit in order, all of us sit in order, and smite the sounding furrows. So sounding furrows, he means the loud waves. Smite, hit hard. So what he means is, let us hit the waves with our oars. Okay, oar, O-A-R. And for my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset and the baths of all the western stars until I die. And he also tells them that this might be our last voyage, because I don't intend to come back soon. My purpose is to sail beyond the sunset and all the baths of the western stars. So all the stars, they sink down into the sea, just like the sun sets into the sea. So we are going to explore that land where all the western stars take a bath, means the place where the stars go down into the sea. And I am going to continue this journey, this voyage, till I die. So right from the beginning, as soon as they start, before starting the voyage, he tells them that most probably we may not come back at all. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. So he says, The fate of this voyage is quite indefinite. Sometimes maybe the gulfs here, he means, I guess, the currents, the waves. We might be drowned in the sea, most probably, who knows. Or we would die and we would reach the happy isles. So the happy isles, I guess he's referring to the Elysian gardens, where the Greek heroes went after their death. Only the glorious and the respected people would go to the happy isles. And so we might reach the happy isles, and there we might meet the great heroes who died before us. For instance, he gives us one name, the great Achilles. Achilles was again one of the most popular Greek heroes. And so when we talk about Achilles, I guess we are reminded of this term, Achilles' heel. That comes from the story that Achilles was invincible. Nobody could defeat him, because all other parts of his body was fortified against all kind of danger, but only his heel, that was his weak point. If he was hit on the heel, he would die. And then during the Trojan War, he causes great havoc in the enemy side, because he knows that he cannot be killed very easily. And something happens, and finally somebody discovers that Achilles is the most important point to be noted on Achilles' body is his heel, and they attack him there. And I think I cannot give you wrong information, but you can just refer. And so that is how Achilles gets killed, because he's hurt in his heel. And so even now when we say Achilles' heel, we use that to mean somebody's weak point. Like, for example, we would say that somebody is a very strong man, but his family is his Achilles' heel. Means the only weakness, he's a very strong man, a very brave man, a righteous man, but he has one weakness, and that is his family. He will do anything for his family, or if you get hold of his family, you can convince him to do something. So that is Achilles' heel. So he says we might go to the happy isles, and we might meet our old friends whom we knew. So anything can happen. We don't know what is going to happen. Though much is taken, much abides. And he once again says, of course we have lost a lot. Now we are old. So much we have lost. We have lost our bodily strength. We have lost at least maybe some part of our enthusiasm. Much is taken, but much abides. So he says, yes, much is taken, I agree, but then there is so much that still remains. Abides here, remains. And you can see that optimism there. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven. So earlier when we were young, we were so strong. We could move earth and heaven. We could change life. We could make revolutions happen around us. But now we are old. We don't have the strength which we had when we were young. But that which we are, we are. But whatever it is, we are what we are. We are the same men. It is true that our bodies have become weak, but then we are inside. We are what we are. Nothing can take away the strength that we have inside. One equal temper. So what are we? That is what he says here. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will. So he says, we are people of equal temper. We are all people who think alike, and we are all heroic. We have a very heroic and adventurous heart inside these weak bodies. And it has been weakened by time and fate. It is true, because we have had a lot of experiences that have weakened us. So much of time has passed, but in spite of all that, we are strong in will, and we have the willpower, we have the determination to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. We are not the type that would give up so easily. We are still young enough to strive, means to work hard, to struggle, to seek, to look for, to find and not to yield. We are not going to give up. We will not give up so easily. We are going to set on a new adventure, and till the last minute of our life, we will continue to extract something that remains of this precious life. Okay, so that is how he ends the poem. So it is definitely no wonder this poem continues to remain so popular, because it's a poem that is so full of vigor, and you read it and it invigorates you. It, as Ulysses tries to, as I told you, inject energy into his mariners, part of that happens to us also. We too derive a lot of optimism and hope and energy from this poem. So what are the themes in this poem? There are many things. I think a chief theme here would be optimism and the verve for life. So the fact that you should not give up with old age, and that your experiences should always add fuel to go forward. So that unwillingness to give up, to the readiness to face challenges. So that optimism is one very important theme here, and it is said that in the personal life of Alfred Lord Tennyson, he went through many depressing stages, and the death of his close friend Arthur Hallam was something that really upset him. He became alcoholic for some time, and in some of his earlier works you see that he's talking about suicide and death. All that is there, but by the time he comes to Ulysses, you can see how he regains the hope that he has lost, and he tells us that we cannot give up easily. So that is one theme, optimism. And then of course death. You can see a very positive attitude towards death. Death in this poem is not portrayed as something that is frightening, because Ulysses speaks of it as something in a very matter-of-fact manner. He doesn't tremble at the thought of death. He only says, he looks at it very practically. He says that yes, of course, death comes to all. Death puts an end to all, and we have very few years to live. So then instead of worrying and instead of awaiting death in fear, why don't we just go headlong and face it? So till death comes here, why sit and wait in fear? Let's go forward and make the best of life, because every hour that we get is a gift. So let's make use of that. So the very stoic acceptance of death is another theme. And then again it makes us think of this aging, because oftentimes if you are a person who is employed and you retire, because here too this is what happens, it's retirement for him. And when we retire, sometimes we think that that is the end of life, but then that is not how we should look at life according to Tennyson. Because of course there are responsibilities that we had to fulfill, we have done that, but that doesn't mean that the life is over. So let us find new things to occupy us. So aging is not something, it is just part of life. It is a part of life, it is not the end of life. So that point is also there, and that the fact that life doesn't end just because you grow old. And I guess in modern times we are more aware of that fact, because there are insurance policies which highlight this fact that you still have life to enjoy even after you retire. So start investing, start saving money for your retirement life, so you can still enjoy life. Because when you are young and when you are trying to fulfill a lot of responsibilities in life, you may often not be able to fulfill your own dreams, your own little pleasures. You might have kept them all for a later time. So retirement again is a time for you to do things that you could not do earlier. So that is a positive way of looking at aging. So that is there about how he says that we still have things to do. Okay, so he yet another point is that he presents adventure and travel as as opposites to a dull and inert kind of life. He exhorts us to find something to do that would keep us interested till the end of our life. And then there is also this question of responsibility. This story, the story of the Greeks, the Greek heroes and Greek gods, it is not dealt with only by Homer. You have many writers who have recounted the story of the heroes, especially the story of Ulysses, in various lights. And in Dante, in Dante's, you know Dante, the great Italian poet, and in Dante's The Divine Comedy, he puts Ulysses in hell, because in Divine Comedy Dante is passing through the various levels of the purgatory in his journey towards God. And so at different places in the purgatory or hell, he meets different people, famous characters who are now in hell. And so there we find Ulysses along with his friend Diomed. And so why has Dante put Ulysses in hell? And Dante, it is believed, did not like the fact that Ulysses skipped his responsibilities. He put everything on his son's shoulders and ran away from life, or ran away from his responsibilities, seeking another kind of life. So it is believed that Dante did not like that. So that is one reason why he put Ulysses in hell. And another reason was also there, which I guess is more valid. I might have to tell you a long story. I'm not going into that now. But the Trojan War actually ends when the Greek heroes, including Ulysses, play a treachery on the other side. They cheat Troy, because the battle has been going on for 10 years, and in spite of all these Greek armies surrounding the island of Troy, they are not giving up, they are holding up, and the battle has been going on. So somehow they have to put an end to this. So they play a very nasty trick. They make a Trojan horse, a wooden horse. They pretend as if all of them have gone from there, admitting defeat. And actually what happens is, all these Greek, the main heroes, like our man Ulysses and many others, they get into this horse and they leave the horse there, the wooden horse, as a gift to the winners. And then what happens is, they take their ships and they all move away from there, the boats, and they all move away. And the people in Troy, the Trojans, are tricked into believing that they have won the battle. And so they start rejoicing, they put down their guards and they start drinking and feasting, and they're all drunk and they are lying inebriated. At that time, all these Greek heroes, they come out of this Trojan horse and kill all of them. And they destroy this Troy. That is how the Trojan War ends. So Dante was also expressing his displeasure at this nasty trick that was played to win the battle. Okay, so that is why he put him in hell. And so the question of responsibility: was it fair on Ulysses to leave his family? Of course, earlier he had gone for to fight. That is okay. Then he lost his way and he got embroiled in a lot of problems for another 10 years. That is an excuse to, okay, fine. But then what about going back again, leaving his family and going back? Why doesn't he think of Penelope, his wife, who has missed him for so long, who continues to remain faithful in spite of him going off for such a long time, for 20 years? It's a long time, but she remained faithful. So isn't it his duty to stay back and be a good husband to her? Shouldn't he be a good father to his son Telemachus, be a good son to his parents, his aged parents? So the question of responsibility. But then he makes it very clear that I am not good at this. So I guess it's better that somebody who is good at it, like for example his son, let him do what he can do well. Let me go and do what I can do well. Okay, so he admits that he is not a good king, that he is basically a traveler and adventurer. So he may neglect the responsibility to his family, but I guess he is fulfilling the responsibility to himself. So responsibility is yet another theme. And when we talk about Penelope, let me just give you an extra piece of information that the Canadian author Margaret Atwood, she has written a very small book called Penelopiad. Penelopiad, Penelope is the spelling of Penelope, Penelopiad is Penelopiad. And there, it's a very entertaining book. You would love reading it for those who are interested doing some extra reading. In Penelopiad, what happens is, just like the Iliad. Okay, Iliad is a story of Ilium. So Penelopiad is a story of Penelope. She tells us the whole story from her version. Okay, from her point of view, and how she feels that she has been victimized, that she was married off without her consent. Then she got married to somebody, and this husband left her and went off for 20 years. So all that in a very humorous tone is expressed by Penelope. So it would be nice if you could find the book and read it. And I guess I should also mention that there is another very popular poem by the title Second Odyssey. All this is for extra reading. Okay, Second Odyssey. It is written by this writer called C.P. Cavafy. And in that poem, he talks about Ulysses. Ulysses again is the central character there. He talks about how Ulysses is not happy in his ancestral home, and there is a thirst inside him for the sea. He hated the air over dry land, and he was gone. I'm not reading the whole poem to you. And so that is again another poem you can read when you make a study of Ulysses. The poem titled Second Odyssey. Okay, so I guess I have exhausted my information on the poem. So I hope you have benefited from the explanation I have given you.